Okay, good evening, everybody. Today we're going to start on Chaf Vav Amud Aleph. About halfway down, we're in the middle of a sugya over here. We have a member from Rav Shmuel who said in the name of Rav Nassan that the only time you are able to sell a basic knesset is only when it's a small basic knesset and it's privately owned. But in the basic knesset of the rabbin is owned by the rabbin, you don't have any right to own it. You don't have a right to sell it. Bebeis erz achazaschem mitam benegam. Bebeis erz achazaschem mitam benegam ve'ein Yushalayim mitam benegam. So only your houses that are achuza are mitam benegam, but Yushalayim is not mitam benegam. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, ani lo shemani ela makom mikdash bilvad. From this passage, I only learn that the makom mikdash, the Beit Hamikdash itself, is not mitam benegam, but in Yerushalayim, the Armatam, that has Armatam. How about the Knesset of Batim Midrashas? Matamim. But you see that even the Batim Midrashas and the Batim Knesset of Yerushalayim are Matama. And you see this, that means that they're owned by the Yachid. Because if they were owned by the Rabbim, they would not be Matama, because it would be part of, it would have an Achazaschem issue, P'tor. Number was this? How about the Knesset of Batim Midrashas? Matamim. Amai, how you, they're owned by the city. Ema Amar Rabbi Yehuda ani lo shemati ela makom mekudesh bavad. He doesn't mean makom hamikdash. He means makom mekudesh, and he's including the Beit Midrashas, Beit Knesset. So they are also makom mekudesh. So they still have machlekes between Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. But my what are they arguing? Tanakama said loinis chalka Yushalayim l'shvatim. Rabbi Yehuda said is chalka Yushalayim l'shvatim. They argue whether Yerushalayim is b'chlal divvied up amongst the Shvatim like the rest of Eretz Yisrael. We put Dani tonight, and they have a similar machlekes to these following Tanam. The Tani, we learned in the Bryce, Ma hayu b'chal kishel Yehuda. What was in Yehuda's chelik harabais hashlachis v'hazaris v'hazaris. The halashachis v'hazaris. The base of lishchas, the storage houses, and the courtyard. Ma hayu b'chal kishel binyamin ulam, the main and the hall heichal ubeis. And the Chadesh Kedashim. Two achas yotzim mechalkesh Yehuda the nechnesas mechalkesh shal Binyamin. Then there was one piece of land that kind of crossed the line and went into Binyamin's from Yehuda into Binyamin. Uba mizbeach banai, and the mizbeach is built on it. V'hay Binyamin had tzadik mitzvah b'chol yaim levala. He wanted to swallow it literally, but to annex it. His whole he was mitzvah on it, that he didn't have this piece from the mizbeach. Shenema. Allah call he was mechayfif, he was mitzvah on it. The fikach zach Binyamin ben Asher shpizin l'shchina. So it's from Binyamin's cheshek and tshuka for this mitzvah. He was zeicha that he got the Aron in his chelik in the Chedesh Kedashim. The high Tana says and another Tana says that he's not, that it's not mecholek. The Tanya that ain't maskim, but Yerushalayim Pnei ain't shalet. You cannot, if you have a house, somehow you got one, and so again, obviously they had some sort of ownership, but it didn't go down. It didn't have a din of achuza. It didn't have a din of they had some restrictions in the ownership. We'll see in a second. You cannot rent out if Yerushalayim and Yerushalayim. You cannot rent a dira in Yerushalayim. I don't know if for the first of the whole year or definitely by Shal Shagalim. That you cannot rent out the bed. You cannot even rent out fully the amount of beds. For example, if you charge in your house a bed $1,000, whatever a night, or a couple $100 a night, whatever it is, part of it is for the use of the bed, and part of it is for the space that the bed occupies. So for the use of the bed, you could charge. So for example, if you would rent out this bed, if I wanted to pick it up from your house, so if you wanted to rent out the bed, let's say you charge me $50 a night, so that's what you're allowed to charge for the people coming to be the regal. You cannot charge for the space underneath it, because again, the space underneath it is not yours to charge for it. After all the tmidim and the shlamim that the people came to shecht on when they were either regal, the skins they got to keep the balam. So the owners of the house are able to take those skins with force. In other words, they're allowed to be taveh those skins. You learn from this in halacha that the mishbach, not really halacha, but a mental thing to do. The mishbach inish gufa umashka beushpize. When you go to someone, when you say to someone for Shabbos and you bring a keli that you're using, you leave the keli by him, not to make a mess, but if something that's going to benefit him. Or if you have hides that you use to, if you shechted an animal, you when you have hides, you leave the hides by him. The same thing would apply today, for example. We don't really come to someone for Shabbos and bring our hides, but if you bring a bottle of wine and you only finish half of it, you don't bring home the bottle of wine with you. You leave it for the guest. You leave it for the host. Look, so we see this machlek, it's this idea of whether Yerushalayim was an achuza, that the Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama are arguing the same as these two brises. This, that the Mishnah, going back to the Mishnah, this Mishnah that says that you cannot, that you always have to be Ma'ila B'Kodesh, you always have to be Ma'ila B'Kodesh with the shul. Loishanu Ella, that's only if the trustees and the people did not sell together. You could sell it for whatever you want, but it doesn't have to be used for. It doesn't have to be used. The money doesn't have to be used for a better fit, and the shul doesn't have to be used for a better fit. Hold on 1 second. Leishanu is going on. I think this is going on. It sounds like it's going on that you don't have to do something better with the money, but I'm not sure how you see it from here. Okay, it seems like you can do whatever you want with the money, and the hush is mamish paka from the shul. The Mr. Shechel Beishechel, mamish turned it into a bar. Shopper them, it's okay. Ravina have a lay hahu tila the Beiknishta. He had a ruin of a shul sitting in his yard. Also, I want to plow that part of the field. What can I do? Amalei zil zavne mishiva taive have it sold to you by the trustees of the shul and of the people, and then you are good to go, and you're able to use that property. Remember, you built a shul. There was an older shul. He was building a new shul. He started a new project, and meanwhile, there was an old shul. There was an old shul in town. Have brother Mister You wanted to break down the old shul, take the bricks and the beams, and put it and incorporate it into this new shul. Happens to be there's a shul around the corner from me that is part of the stones of that shul are from the original shul of the Baal Shem HaKadosh, and it's called the Baal Shem Tov shul. So it's very interesting that mamish that idea. He sat there and he had this idea. He was trying to figure out if the halacha that Rav Chizda said is negaya to this case. Don't destroy the shul until you build a new one. So is the psak is his reasoning over there? Over there, it's because what's going to happen is you're going to demolish a shul, and then by the time you get around to a fundraiser and a charity campaign and else whatever, it doesn't get around to it, and you're not going to have a shul in the city. What would you say in this case? Was this case he's mamish using it for the shul? In other words, he has an earmark, he has a project, and I want to break it. I'm in the middle of building it. I'm breaking down the shul just to bring it over 2 blocks to put into the new shul. Also, with our Papa V'Asalei, the Kamei de Rav Huna, they switched it to Rav Huna ben someone else. Rav Huna Brei de Rav Yeshua. Because Rav Huna Stam was like 3 generations before Papa. It doesn't really make sense that he asked both the same question. V'Asalei Kamei de Rav Huna ben Yeshua. I just read it a second ago. Brei de Rav Yeshua. V'Asalei Amar Rav Ahai. So the question is, I don't know why they don't speak of why how is he allowed to ask 2 people? I don't know how he's allowed to ask 2 different. So I think once he got usher, why isn't that usher? Amar Rava, my wife did clowns in the background. I don't know if you could see that. I don't know if she did it for the chair, but she did it for the Layhunda Masaida. Fine. So he got upset that even Rav Chiz's psak is even when it's not a case of pshia. You could sell it and you can barter, The aguro mashkuna aser, to lend it or to rent it is aser because it's maintaining the status of a shul. So you're going to rent it out for someone to do some dance over there, whatever, some group get together, some whatever people want to rent the shul for. Let's say to do a simcha, right? It's not so simple to do a simcha in the base in the shul. You have a simcha is a separate issue. That's a whole different sugya. But to rent out the main sanctuary, right? To rent for a vart or whatever it is, that would be a problem. It seems. My time because it's staying in its status of shul, and tomorrow you're going to use it for shul. Tomorrow in a month you're going to use it for shul, and now you're going to use it to house people. It's not covered. So the question is, for the stones itself, also but to rent it out would be a problem. That's dafka by old ones, which means not old as in like old, but they were used already as a shul. Let me just double check if this is what it means because I don't remember learning that. Yeah, to lend them. I don't know why they use a different word, but it's also to lend them. Azafinu asa, to lend the stones is not. So this is only if the stones are already used as part of the old as a shul. And now let's say you have let's say the shul breaks or whatever it is, and you want to lend out these stones, that would be asa. But if I just got a shipment from the brick company and I put them down in part of new construction, now I want to lend them out because things are taking longer. I don't need them right away. It's mutter. The afilim on the Omar has mana milsihi going bagid lemates. That's when you use it in a way like when you make tachrichim for a mace, that after I finish the tachrichim, they're ready to be used right away. So if I say I'm making this baguette for a mace, the second I finish the baguette, it's able to be used. So that month, in that case, I'm going to hold that what's hazmana milsi, but over here, when I just make the stones and I didn't do anything with them, abel halcha that's just spinning thread to use for a baguette for a mace that nobody holds. It's considered hazmana milsa. But so, for example, the parallel case by building that man would hold hazmana milsa would be if I make it into a wall and then I didn't use it as a shul yet. So I didn't walk in. No one said kaddish. Nothing. I just build a shul. I build the wall as part of the structure of the shul. No one walked in. Nothing was done. But that he would hope that's as mana milsa because it's ready to be used as is. But just stamp to have bricks piled outside on a pallet is not considered as mana milsa according to anybody. Matana pligiba. What about giving them away from matana? So we said selling and bartering is not a problem, and we said renting and lending is an issue. What about matana? It seems to be like this quasi state. Pligiba Rav Achav Ravina Chad Asa v'Chad Shari. What it's a machlekes man the Asa Bahai man the Asa. B'mai tifka kedushasa. There was no transaction done. And matana is just you give me something and that's it. So where was the kedusha? Where did the kedusha switch over from? A two. Where did it go? Obviously, the person that they're giving the shul to benefited the community. The community benefited a lot from him. Let's say, matana kizemne. It came out that matana is like selling and it is mutter. In the case that was selling is mutter, matana is also mutter. Tashmisha mitzvah in the Quran, niskarin, you can a tashmisha mitzvah you could throw in the garbage. Now you can't do it in a way that's designed, but it doesn't need to be gainis, like we're going to see in a second. Tashmisha kedusha nignazin. You have to do geniza for tashmisha kedusha. We're going to see exactly which one's which. Tashmisha mitzvah. This is a tashmisha mitzvah. Again, those things that can be thrown out. Sukkah, lulav, shayfet, tzitzis, those are all things that do not have kedusha in and of itself. So water, sukkah, or even schach maybe does not have to be buried. It could just be thrown in the garbage. Again, in an open covered as much as possible. Tzitzis people put in a shopping bag, then throw in the garbage. Be'eluhen tashmisha kedusha, the luskami svarim, the covers, the sacks of svarim, tefillin and mezuzahs, the siksha sefer Torah and the cover of sefer Torah, v'natish of tefillin and the holder of the sefer, and also the bag, the holder of the sefer Torah of tefillin to Hussein. So to Hussein is a machlekes of here what it means. According to Rashi learns that the ISIS that we have in the Shalyad, the Yud in the Shalyad, and the Daled in the Shal Reish are halacha ma'aseh Sinai. And if that's the case, then those things are kedusha mamish, and they have a higher level of kedusha like mamish or tefillin. But according to if you say that it's just in that case, then the nartik is going on the tefillin of the ritzuis, also the nartik of the ritzuis also. But if you want to put the ritzuis again, if you want to put the ritzuis in the same if you want to say the ritzuis are like a nartik, which means it's one level, then it's only tashmisha kedusha, then it's because the ISIS are not halacha ma'aseh Sinai. The halacha ma'aseh Sinai, then it has the din of tefillin itself, and this nartik is going on tefillin or saying the nartik of the tefillin and the ritzuis. Not that the ritzuis have a different level than tefillin, and that's totally on the machlekes of whether the knots that are ISIS are the same as are from halacha ma'aseh Sinai. And then within that shita, there's a machlekes if just that piece of the tzua has the halacha or the whole thing. Okay, just interesting how to line up the words over here. I would have thought originally have a course of the attachment who v'shavi. I would think that the actual bima where the Sefer Torah rests is only tashmisha kedusha. Why? Because the velvet or whatever cover goes on top of the bima, that is the tashmish kedusha, and the bima underneath is tashmisha kedusha. And you'd be able to sell it or throw it out without having that high level of tashmish kedusha. Even the chazina, the ma'aser v'la Sefer Torah. Sometimes the Sefer Torah goes directly onto the bima. I mean, the tashmish kedusha, I would say no, it's a higher level, and it's tashmish kedusha, and it's not allowed to be disposed of it inappropriately. But the tashmish, the paroiches is tashmish because it's serving the Aron Kodesh, which is serving the Sefer Torah. Even the chazina, the afile, uman chisira ilave, which we don't really do today. But they take apparently used to bring it in, and they used to wrap the Sefer Torah used to go directly onto the paraychas at some point. I mean, the tashmish kedusha who ba'aser. Again, we don't do that as far as I know. So l'chayr today, the paraychas would be tashmisha kedusha, and it would be able to be disposed of in accordance with those halachas. The Rafat. High teva zutri shari. The high teva is a teva that breaks, so it gets ruined. So ma'abda teva zutri shari. You can make a smaller teva from it. Kursiya asa, but to make a beam again. Aron Kodesh. High teva is Aron Kodesh. So the Aron Kodesh that breaks, and I want to patch it up together and make it smaller. You could. But to make that from those pieces, to restructure it into a bima, that's asa. I'm going to have a high person of law, the paraychas that gets worn out. I'm going to have a person l'sifrei shari to make a paraychas or cover for sfarim is mutter. L'chumshin asa, but to go down and make it to cover just a chumshin is a clap of just one chumash, that's asa. Amarava hani zvili de chumsha. Come to the Sfiri, these covers of either the sacks and the covers of the Svarim, Tashmish Kedusha Ninu, they have to be buried. What's the Chiddush? They're directly holding the Sefer Torah and the Chumashim. And the Ma'od Tema Hani Lav the cover of Dinan. But then Turei Ba'ama Avidi that it's also used to beautify it. So again, his Havamina was that you could take these bags, you keep the Sefer Torah in, and it's tashmisha, and you could dispose of it without really any rules. But he says no, because I don't even know what he would say it is, because he's saying it's mamish just to watch it. It's like a very low level. So he says the bags of the Sefer Torah are for beautification. So for example, let's say the bag of the tefillin is not just to protect it from the rain; it's also to beautify it. It's also covered. So therefore, it's a din of tashmish kedusha. But the plastic, first of all, the plastic is on top of the. Let's say, for example, the plastic. The plastic on the bima. The plastic on the bima is not for the beautification of the Sefer Torah. So that has no kedusha, even though that's the first thing that the Sefer Torah is resting on. But because the plastic is not there for beauty, it's just there to protect the velvet that your elbows shouldn't rub it out, after a couple of years. But it's not meant for beautification; it's meant for preservation, and l'chayr would not have any kedusha on it. Ahube Knishta, the Yehuda Remai. So there's these Roman Jews that ended up in Mechuzah, which is Rava's town, and they had the following question: have a psiach lahu idraina, have a machas be mace. It was opened up. The main sanctuary was opened up to an adjoining room that had a mace. I think mason were regularly kept there. That was where the town morgue was, also in the shul. They wanted to come down there. Kahana wanted to come down, and obviously you can't. Again, the hilchas tuma is it doesn't have to even be in the same room. If there's two adjoining rooms, there's no hefsek in between. They didn't have a door, so the tuma automatically comes into the other room. Also, Amrulay the Rava. They went to Rava and they said, "What should we do?" Amrullahu the lu tevaisa isvua the havile kli eitz hasuya lenachas. Take your aron hakodesh and put it in that hole, because anything that's meant to rest, even though it's not mechub l'karka mamish, but it's meant to rest, it's not meant to move around, then it's not mekavatoma, and because it's not mekavatoma, it's chaytzitz. If I take anything that is mekavatoma, it's not chaytzitz, it's mekavatoma, and the tuma passes through. We can understand, let's say, for example, a styrofoam cup. A styrofoam cup does not get hot, so it's not mekabo heat. So the heat stays in the cup, and the outside of the cup stays warm cool to the touch. If you take a glass, take the hot water, put it into the glass gets hot, and the heat passes through. Toma would work the same way. Okay, so they said, so that was his eitzah. Sometimes, again, I'm not really sure how this works, but they used to, I guess, reconfigure the all right, and use it as a bima, and they would move it around. It's something that's used. It's metalta, whether it's full or empty, which is the qualifications when to make something not makabatuma has to not be this. He said, so if that's the case, you can't do it, and you have to find another eitzah. Either put up a regular door, or find or fill it up with something that is not makabatuma. Amar Mazuta. So again, we have covers for the Sefer Torah. You could make into tachrichem, and then you could bury them with the mace, and everything's fine. A Sefer Torah that is worn out and needs to be disposed of, you could bury it next to Talmid Chacham. Even somebody who's not a big Talmid Chacham doesn't learn Gemara, he just learns Mashais and Brises with the Rebbe, that would be enough to make him a Talmid Chacham for this, and you could bury Sefer Torah with him. But it should be put in a Kli Cheres. It's probably across the board, not just by a mace, not just by a Talmid Chacham. Shenemar, when it's hot in the Kli Cheres, the man yamdu yamim rabim. It should stay for. It should not decompose right away, and so you put it in Kli Cheres, which will keep it from decomposing. Amra papi mishmein derava b'vnei mibei knishta lebei rabbanon shari, from a basic knesses to a bismedish is mutter. Mibei knishta mibei rabbanon lebei knishta asa. From bismedish to bismedish is asa. Papi mishmein derava masi epcha. But so again, we have two people in the name of Rava saying two different things: Papi and Papa. Papi says, from a base knesses to base medrash is aser is mutter, and the hapach is aser, and the Papa says punk faket. The base medrash to base knesses aser, and the hapach is mutter. The Rava masi epcha. Fine. Amarav achal kavasei the Papi mistav. It's mistav that's a Papi that what from base knesses to base medrash is mutter, and the hapach is aser. Why don't Rishu ben Levi base knesses? Mutter lasa is base medrash. Shmamina. Rishu ben Levi passed like this, so it makes sense that's where that Rava went. Rishu ben Levi. Now it's interesting to note that the basic knesses has a high level of kedusha in some way that you're not allowed to talk at all. Any extra words in the basic knesses, or drink anything, eat anything, has much higher level of kedusha in that way as far as behavior goes. Because a besmedish, because of bittul Torah, we're allowed to eat and drink and make ourselves heinish, so we can sit there for a few hours. But a base knesset, when you just walk in, you daven and you leave, there's no heter to have a coffee and shmai around and chapashmuz before and after davening. Darash Rav Kapara. My dechsiva Yisrael is Beis Hashem, Beis Melech, Beis Kol Bata Yushalayim, Beis Kol Beis God L'Sarach Be'esh. So Beis Hashem is the Beis Hamikdash. This is talking about by Nebuchadnezzar, by the Beis Rishon. Yeah. Beis Hamikdash, Beis Melech, Elu Pati and Shalmelech. That's Tzidkiyahu's palace. Ve'es Kol Bati Yerushalayim is Kamashman Pashat. That's called Beis Gad L'Sara Be'esh. What does that mean? So you see, I think we're bringing this down just because it talks about the base medrash and basic knesset. We just had a machlekes in that. So you're going to bring a raya both ways. Each madam is going to bring a raya. So we see the lashon gadlus by Torah. Madam tefillah dechsev saprunog doiles asher asa Elisha. Say over the greatness, the great things that Elisha did. The Elisha the Abba, how did he do it? He did it with tefillah. The time that Bishul ben Levi, who the Amar Makam Shemagadim by Torah, the Amar Bishul ben Levi, basic knesses mutar lasses mismedesh. So it makes sense that Bishul ben Levi was the one that said that the godless is in a base medrash because he said that's a higher level. So it makes sense again. Oh, we just had the Maimon of Bishul ben Levi, so that's another tushta. Shramina weiter. So we had this whole hierarchy in the Mishnah of what you're allowed to sell to buy what. You have an old sefer Torah in the shul and it needs to be repaired or whatever it is. It's very heavy and the item's getting older, and you want to buy a brand new lighter mini Torah. What do you do? Because you are not? This is one of the tzadim, right? Tzad Aleph is it because you're not being mile b'kodesh? It's also idilma kivin delekal aluya achlin shapidami. You're already maxed out. What are you supposed to do? You can't go higher in another level. So therefore, you're allowed to do it. Tashma avamachut. So we want to bring a right from our Mishnah. It says avamachut hayir loyichus svarim. So it's mashma, but I thought the Mishnah says if you sell it, you cannot buy svarim, which means individual nach, right? But it means svarim hudlay. You cannot buy svarim hatayra b'tayra shapadami, right? You want to make a diak that says you cannot buy svarim, you can buy another tayra. And if they want masisin the evet, the Mishnah is b'diavad. Once you already did it. I want to ask you, what are you allowed to do? Tashma goyim sefer time mivtachais chumshin b'mitzvachais neviim m'ksuvim. Avalei neviim m'ksuvim b'mitzvachais. You cannot wrap. This is talking about the wrappings of the Sefer Torah. So, going Sefer Torah, you could wrap a Sefer Torah with a lower level of kedusha of wrappings, but the other way around, you cannot. But Ketani Mias, Goylin Sefer Torah mitzvachas chumashim. So mitzvachas chutashin in mitzvachas Sefer Torah loy. You see that you cannot use from one Sefer Torah to the other Sefer Torah. Again, the diak was that you were allowed to use the mitzvachas, the coverings of the Sefer Torah, of the chumashim, of the individually written klafim, that you're allowed to use those wrappings to wrap a sefer Torah. But another sefer Torah wrapping you're not allowed to use. And if they want aim a sefer, look at the sefer. But you cannot use the wrappings of the sefer Torah to wrap a chumash. So you want to make the same deal that from a Torah to a chumash you're not allowed to wrap, but from a Torah to Torah, you are allowed to. You cannot bring a right from the Mishnah because the Mishnah, the ratio is being medayik one way, Sefer is being medayik the other way, so it means it's lav dafka, and it's just coming to tell you those specific halachas. Tashma, let's bring a right. Menichin Sefer Torah agabe Sefer Torah, the Torah agabe chumashim, chumashim agabe neviim, uksuvim avaloi neviim, uksuvim agabe chumashim, loy chumashim agabe Torah. So we said you're allowed to stack Sefer Torah on top of each other, but not something higher than it. Now I heard, I remember as a kid we were taught to be machbet. Chumash has to type of Gemara and type of Mishnah. It's a seder in what you're allowed to stack. I heard that this whole halach is only legabe klaf, but legabe printed psalm, it's not so dafka. That's what I heard. You have to ask your local rabbi if it's negay. But Gemara hanacha kamet shani hanacha do efsher hanacha. The chatchila has to be that it's mutter and it's not comparable to any other case. Why? The loy tema achi. If you're going to tell me that you're not allowed to stack. And how are you ever allowed to be Megalgal Sefer Torah? When you wrap a Sefer Torah, you are by definition wrapping a Sefer Torah on top of each other. You're rolling Sefer Torah, so Bereshis is now rolled inside, and Shemais is on top of it. So how could you ever do that? So therefore, it's La'efshus. That means Hanacha was never said. It was never said for this. Sorry. Tashma, the Amr Rabbi Barachan Amr Bechanan. She says halacha beferish that if you do not if you do not you're not allowed to sell sefer Torah to buy a new sefer Torah. Hasam and the Gemara mishum pshiusa. Over there, his halacha was again the same issue of before with the shul. You're going to come, you're going to sell sefer Torah, then you're going to start shopping around for sefer Torah. You go for slave, it's not good enough. There's not enough times, and you're going to end up not buying one. And my question is going the chsevu manach the mai. It's sitting already in the sefer's house. The guy already wrote the sefer Torah. It's sitting there. All I have to do is sell the sefer Torah to one guy and take the money and go next door and buy sefer Torah. Another riot. So we don't have an answer because Rav Shimon Gamliel's svara is not Rav Shimon Gamliel's raya halacha might not be talking about our case. Tashma, Amar Vechan Mishum Meir, Ein Markin Sefer Torah, Limit Torah L'Sias Isha, L'Lisa Isha. You can sell a Sefer Torah to pay someone to learn, or to pay for a chassan to marry a woman. Shamino Torah Shabbatim. So of course, buying a Sefer Torah is allowed. Because again, from Liman Torah, so you say if Liman Torah is allowed, then buying a Torah is allowed. Maybe the Maisa. The Iker is the Maisa, and because Liman maybe the Maisa, it's a higher level than Torah itself. Ishanami, you told him that the foundation of the whole world was created that the world shouldn't just go for and not be populated. So you told him about like the fundamental idea of the world that supersedes the Torah, but another Torah wouldn't. Our Torah, like. So they bring down the halacha l'maisa. The Rambam, the Rif, the Rosh, all passing that it's aser. They learned that at least some of them learned that this doichik of Rav Shimon Gamliel is lav dafka. The Rav Shimon Gamliel's psak was across the board. They want to say maybe he's not talking about our case, but that's not true. Rav Shimon Gamliel's halacha was across the board. Even he shouldn't sell the sefer Torah ever, even if he doesn't need it. And he has a heter to sell. Obviously, he doesn't have to starve to death to not sell sefer Torah. The Mocha sefer Torah, or he sells his daughter. He's not going to see bracha from this money, even though he has a heter l'chayr because the mamish doesn't have what to eat. He should figure out another eitzah, shkoyach, and Mitzvah will continue tomorrow night. Tomorrow day, I'm going to do an extra share. Hopefully, that's Hashem.